Welcome back to the Walk Around Knowledge podcast with Lo Millie, where I break down topics I've learned while securing my legacy. Think about it as knowledge you should be armed with while navigating through life. Let's take a walk. Welcome back to another episode of the Walk Around Knowledge podcast with Lo Millie. We're back for episode 10. Can you believe we've been here for 10 episodes? In the event of COVID-19, we wanted to be safe. And so we are coming to you live from my home, specifically my room. For those of you that are watching this, you see all of my beautiful plants. For those of you that are listening, I am recording from Philly. So if you didn't get a chance to tune into episode 9, on that episode, I recapped my experience dealing with my father's death, what that was like. And that was kind of the culmination of the beginning of the transformation in my life, if you will. And so today I'll be kind of discussing where I am right now. And so for those of you that have been tuned in, you know that season 1 of this podcast has been dedicated to establishing like a foundation and telling my story. And so we started off with, when I first quit my job in 2013 and kind of chronicled all the way up until my father dying. And today we're going to discuss like where I am right now, like what I got going on, what it's been like since my father passed and since really taking helm of the family business, and just also like, navigating this inherited responsibility with my own sets of goals and aspirations. And so we're going to dive right on in today. I'm happy to be back. So my father passed 2/11/2018. And like I mentioned on the last episode, I knew that I needed to take a break from my platform, a break from being on the scene, from social media, from pursuing my entrepreneurial endeavors. 1, to grieve and really process what was going on. But 2, I now have this inherited business that me and my brother are now at the helm of. And so to me, I wanted to honor my father by dedicating enough time, energy, and effort to really making this transition happen. And a part of that transition was us solidifying contracts and opportunities on our own, because this would be the first time that we will really be pursuing things without our father around. And although we had pursued opportunities before, he was still the advisor. He was still there. You could still pick up the phone and call him. And so there was this goal that I had. I wanted to secure a certain amount of contracts, hit a certain dollar threshold to make me feel like, okay, we can do this, and that's what I did. And so, looking back, I know it was one of those things where it's like, Dad, like you about to, really kind of stop pursuing your dreams and really fall in line with this responsibility. And what I realize and what I often speak about is just how therapeutic and healing it was for me to have my father's business after he died, because it was something that allowed me to keep his spirit and his legacy going. And it proved to be, like I mentioned, just very healing for me. And so that experience, I was in for a rude awakening, you know what I mean? And one of the things that I realized was like, okay, things are different. He's no longer here. Like, what are the styles of how me and my brother communicate? Up until that point, I will say me and my brother are in a situation where we're building a close relationship that we've never had. We are, 13, 14 years apart. So we are now operating in a relationship in terms of closeness that we've never experienced. And it's a beautiful thing, right? Seeing my brother as the CEO, as the leader, him seeing me outside of just being the little sister, being the director of business development, and us looking at our network. How can we do this? Coming together for this unified goal and mission. And I oftentimes tell people that, there's this negative connotation to like family business, like, oh, you don't want to get in business with your family because family is, which is a whole bunch of crock shit. because just like any other business, it's lawyers, accountants, there's various different measures that you can take to ensure that whether it's a family business or not, that things are going to be okay. So when you are working in a family business and you have this unified goal and mission, it's a feeling of pride like no other. And I think, those 2 years that I took off, I really started to understand what my father was trying to drill into my head those 4 years prior to that, when we were doing the succession planning, because he wanted me to care and I cared, but he wanted me to take ownership in terms of caring, right? Not just doing things because he said to do it. And, once he passed, it was like, I have the baton. We got the baton and it's time to go. And, during that time, I remember, meeting various different people that my father knew through business. And it was an experience of like learning about a man that I didn't, almost like learning stories or hearing stories about him that I didn't even know, because I'm now stepping into this business, stepping into owning it, stepping into being the face of it. And it's new, there's pride. And with that, there comes a sense of sharing and documenting my experience. And so all the while, like, I'm still active on like my IG stories, but I'm not active on my website. I'm not posting on my timeline, not really engaging my audience with any programming or anything like that. But I am just kind of sharing the BTS of what it's like, to have this inherited business and to grieve. And, I will say that the 2 years after my father passed, there was a sense of relief in those 2 years as well, because like I mentioned on previous episodes of, how hard the caregiving phase was, dealing with so much at that time, there was a sense of relief because I was no longer living under that gray cloud, if you will. But it was also new territory. And, we often hear about the 5 stages of grief. It's what I think is denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. And I went through all of those, and I still go through all of those today. But looking back, I'm happy that I took those 2 years off to really sit with what happened and really to process, because when things were happening during that time period, there's just no time to process. And so I do remember probably like 2000, I would say late in 2018, early 2019, I started to gain more and more clarity, because that's what happens when death happens, right? You're assessing everything in your life, business, relationships, your habits, how you do things, how you want to be remembered, your legacy. And while I was experiencing all of this clarity, I started to realize just the wisdom and the information that I also inherited from my father, right? So me understanding that, okay, about government contracting, like, do your peers know about government contracting? Like, this is something that this has been inherited information, but this is something that your peers need to know more about. Or, the fact that you went through this succession planning process with your father, like, what is it like to pass that baton? What is it like to do legacy planning and to plan for that? And I started to realize that that's not something common within our community. How can I use my experience as a case study to help other people? So I started to, really start to think about, me coming out of this experience and the value and the skill set and how I can serve in a greater way. And so those were the things that were kind of on the back burner within those 2 years too. It's like, okay, I know at some point I'm going to come back to my platform, but what does that look like? Right. I'm not the same person I was, when I first started Can't Stay Put. I'm not the same person I was, when my father died. So what I was having to assess is like, what does it look like for me to serve on a greater level, given who I am on this side of things, given all the experience that I've had, because I can now use that experience to impact and serve others. And so from during that 2-year hiatus from my platform, I was testing out little things here and there to kind of see, if there was any interest around the subject matter of legacy, succession planning, government contracting. And so all the while I was just thinking, like historically people have known you for, Miss Can't Stay Put. You travel the world, you're a global citizen, you have a global impact. And although that's still me and will always be me, I knew that lens was too skewed to come back as, because it didn't fully represent who I am today. And to be honest, Can't Stay Put has always been just a layer of who I am. But, when you're building a brand, you only want people to know about the brand that you're building. So you don't want to really showcase anything else outside of that. And that's the approach that I had took with my platform. And so, and up until my father passing, I always I want to present myself as myself, and Can't Stay Put be one of the things within my portfolio that I do, but it just never seemed like the right time. So here we are, my father has died, and I take this 2-year hiatus, and I'm like, this is actually the perfect time to, what would I say, reinvent myself, if you will, or to start to present myself, as myself, and not solely under this global and travel and lifestyle lens. And so in 2019, I started to think about what this brand, this platform look like how am I reorganizing things? Because Can't Stay Put is still very much a part of who I am. Is very much a part of my pursuits and things that I want to do. But again, it's not my only thing anymore. I'm also having to think about, I am now needing to understand what serial entrepreneurship is, right? And how am I going to juggle this inherited responsibility with my dreams and goals and aspirations? Because let's be clear, I told my dad very clearly that I will make sure I always have my hand in the business, but your baby girl got dreams and goals and aspirations, and I'm going to pursue them. That's who you raised me to be. So the challenge became, how do you do both, right? And so that is really what I began to focus on, is how do you do both? And, that's when the feelings of overwhelm come in, and the feelings of stress, how do you do this? And then, you look to your right, you look to your left and see, what peers are actually navigating this space. And you don't really have that many peers who are navigating in this space. But at the same time, I'm remaining very grateful, right? Because I have been entrusted with this responsibility to not only carry on this legacy, but to be an example to others, to showcase what this really looks like. So those 2 years were really about, me learning who I am in the business without my father, learning how me and my brother work together. And I will say, we're still learning, we're still transitioning. It's a beautiful thing. I say it's probably one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, is building and continuing my father's legacy with my brother, and having that sense of pride and being able to share that with him. I think also, those 2 years was really about, who are you on this side, Lauren? And taking a breather, exhaling. I did a lot of, travel, and not Can't Stay Put travel, not focused, business travel, but, just checking in with myself. And, some of it distraction, some of it healing. I'm still healing, right? This grieving thing is a forever thing. But looking back, I am very grateful that I took those 2 years off to heal, to learn the business, to create a certain level of rapport and respect with my brother, but to also process and understand the experience that I went through and how I can use that experience to impact and serve even more people. Because like I mentioned before, I always knew I was going to be coming back to my platform. It was just a matter of when, and it was a matter of how. And I knew now that it was time to present Lauren Rosenmiller, not Lauren, the face of Can't Stay Put. It was time to showcase all of who I am. And that's what I was going to do. So that brings me to this year, 2020, right? So the goal was, you're going to come back 2020 and, launch your platform. And, if you've been rocking with me, if you've here been watching these podcasts, then I officially launched my website and my personal brand in March of this year. The 4 ethos being, entrepreneurship, generational legacy, global citizenship, and being rooted in faith, all of which really encompass everything that I represent. And so me launching my personal brand also came with me launching my parent company, which is L.R. Miller & Co., which is a portfolio of brands and media assets that serve millennials through online education, media, merchandise, and experiences and events. And so how Can't Stay Put comes back into the fold. Can't Stay Put is one of those brands of the L.R. Miller & Co. portfolio. And so I knew that before solely coming back to Can't Stay Put, I needed to come back as myself. And so that is what 2020 has been kind of been focused on. Who am I after, this 2-year hiatus? Who am I as a second generation business owner? Who am I now with this inherited responsibility, now pursuing my own goals and aspirations? Who am I now that I have this extra wisdom and valuable information that I'm ready to package and share with the world? And so 2020 was really dedicated to me building my personal brand and me figuring out what I wanted to offer and how I wanted to serve up under my personal brand. And so, this year I kind of took the approach of kind of like having this blank canvas, right? And just throwing things up to see what stuck, because I had ideas of how I wanted to present my personal brand, what offers I wanted. But of course, this is my first year back. I haven't been active on social media, haven't been active doing speaking engagements, just really haven't been engaging my community with systematic programming with a strategy behind it. And so, I knew that this was going to be a year of establishing my footing, but also understanding that I'm still a vet in the game. You know what I mean? This is not my first rodeo, but I had been, gone for 2 years. And so, I wasn't going to be too hard on myself about what all needed to happen this year. But even still, I still got a whole lot of shit done. You know what I mean? And so like I was talking to my assistant about how, we will be debriefing next week about all of the things that happened this year. And so one of my main focus was, to definitely to create content and tell my story about my experience and have that be rooted in what offers people see from my personal brand and platform. And so a couple of the things that I did focus on this year was introducing more Black and brown people to government contracting, right? That's a untapped industry and marketplace that a lot of Black and brown people do not play in. And it's something that's very, very important to me because that was one of my father's missions, right? Increasing economic opportunity for people of color, that people that look like us. One of the ways that he did that was through policy in government contracting and procurement and increasing minority participation in government contracting. So a part of me honoring him, continuing his legacy, is introducing more Black and brown millennials to this world. And so this year, I led plenty of discussions. I just recently wrapped up a masterclass. And next year, I will be providing more support and a whole community around, B2G with Low Millie and teaching millennials about government contracting. Also, legacy is a big thing for me. If you've been tuning into this podcast, I feel like I say legacy about 10 times a day. But one of the really proud things that I did this year that I'm very proud of, me and a colleague of mine, Jakaya, we developed a 3-part workshop series on how to start, build, and secure legacy. And that was literally really birthed out of my experience going through succession planning, things that we could have done better, things that I learned, things that we got right. Because for me, another mission of mine is, not letting sickness and death be the trigger of succession planning and getting your affairs in order. But even beyond that, also changing the connotation to this type of planning. Is not end of life. This is really planning the future of your family's legacy. And so how do we detach the death, the end from it, and really start to think about, where do I want my family to be in 50 years? Where do I want my family to be in 100 years? And so, government contracting and, legacy planning and succession planning and teaching that to my community, that comes directly from my experience of taking care of my dad, of going through, as hard as it was, I am now in a position to serve and impact my community. And so this year I dedicated a lot of my efforts to like piloting things, piloting to see what the interest was and, what the response would be. And, I have received and been well received. And it has been a blessing to be able to tell my family story and to be able to use my family story to give people inspiration and idea of what generational wealth and legacy looks like and could potentially look like for them. And so that's what this year's been focused on, like really, building up LR Miller and Co. But also like navigating this as a serial entrepreneur, right? Which means that I'm having to do things a lot slower than what I would normally do because I'm not solely just focused on my business anymore. And so what that means is I can't do everything. So part of this is, getting the financial and human resources required to build a business, not a sole proprietorship, right? So if I'm building a portfolio of brands that serve millennials, I got to, build a team, I have an assistant. What does that look like? I need resources. And so I've just been really learning about, how to build up the system and the operation to be able to succeed in serial entrepreneurship, really understanding what my true capacity is to do both. But also, understanding that these are growing pains, right? Like figuring this out. And that's just on the business front, right? But on a personal level, there's so much self-discovery that is still happening. And there's so much processing that I'm still doing because I will say I am now a somewhat stable entrepreneur. This is my first time being somewhat stable in entrepreneurship. So this is new for me, and just being stable in general, right? There's so much instability that comes from entrepreneurship. Then there was instability that came from, taking care of my dad and being in that space for 4 years. I was emotionally, mentally, physically unstable for those 4 years. And then, the instability of grieving my father's death. And so I feel like this is the first time in almost 7 years where there's a level of like, whew, you know what I mean? Like I can check in. And I will say that, this year also being the year of a global pandemic has allowed for this self-reflection and this introspection to happen even more. And it has been tremendous for me to take this time to really get to know myself. You know what I mean? Because there's time to do it. And I think I've had to like unlearn certain habits because I've just been so accustomed to juggling so much. And so now I'm like, who am I in this space? Like how are you going to juggle this serial entrepreneurship? And, how is your mental health? And how do you want to build your business? You know what I mean? And just really being present in that. And then also having the space to like network and meet people and kind of present all of the new ideas and things that I have and how I want to serve. And so it's been very exciting. It's been very motivating and inspiring to kind of feel like I'm back in my space. Like I'm a new person. I'm a better person, like way sharper, like way stronger. My stock done went all the way up. Okay. But it just feels good to finally be running again without the hurdles that I had historically had because of the responsibility I had with my, my father's illness and succession planning and the mental, emotional toll with that. And so to have that be removed and be able to wake up every day and pursue and continue to build legacy and continue the legacy. So I'm just thankful, to be able to be in this position to use my life as a case study, to develop, offerings and services and programs that will help people that look like me. Another part of that is, with me starting my parent company, L.R. Miller & Co., and it being a portfolio of brands, part of that is having this Walk Around Knowledge podcast, the 3-part workshop series, another brand that's In the Room with Legacy brand. Now I have, Can't Stay Put, In the Room with Legacy, Walk Around Knowledge podcast with Lo Millie, B2G with Lo Millie. All of these are various different brands that operate under the parent company. And so keeping my fingers crossed, there will be a relaunch of Can't Stay Put in 2021 that I'm very, very excited about. But like I mentioned before, I'm playing the long game, you know what I mean? And so one thing has to be secured such that it can support the next thing. And that has to be secured so you can support the next thing. And so, just building this portfolio and, set myself up. I tell people all the time, I'm on a mission to secure the next 100 years of my family's legacy, and I'm serious about it. You know what I mean? And excited about it and happy to be able to share and document this so others can do the same. And so, with this podcast, I'm excited for next year because we're going to start to dive into actual topics like, government contracting, succession planning, the steps of things, or entrepreneurship, branding, the actual topics. And so, a part of this season was to really give you guys the confidence and establish trust with you guys so that that when I'm talking about these specific topics and giving you the game and the walk around knowledge on things, that that it comes from a place of experience, is rooted in skill set, is rooted in doing the actual work. I walk what I talk. Okay. So that is what this year has been, what is on the horizon. And I'm just excited that you guys are on this journey. I'm excited you've been taking this walk with me. I hope that this season has been humanizing, right? Hearing my story, hearing the various different things I've gone through, but I'm still here. I'm still standing, I'm still rocking. And I hope that my story has been valuable to you. And I hope that you're going to keep on rocking with me. So that's episode 10. We done. I can't believe it's been 10 whole episodes. I can't believe you guys have been rocking with me. I am so happy and grateful and thankful that you have been here. It has been healing to share my story. It has been therapeutic. It has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to start a podcast for years, but just never had the time to do it. And so, just thank you. You know what I mean? And I am looking forward to you guys continuing to take this walk with me. We will be coming back in Q1 of next year. This is when we will start to actually dive into topics. This is when it'll be time to get your notebook out and your pen out, because it's going to be time to, really soak up the knowledge. You know what I mean? And so I just really want to thank each and every one of you that have tuned in, that have shared, that have liked, that have commented. And I'll just ask you to continue to be on this journey with me. As I continue to be my best self, I hope that you continue to be your best self and seek out walk around knowledge that you could be armed with as you navigate through life. And so, thank you for being here. Thank you for rocking with me. I hope you have a great holiday season. I hope you continue to stay safe. Until next time, I'll holla at y'all.